If you've ever watched a decluttering video in almost any niche online, you've probably heard the word ruthless or cutthroat applied to that declutter video. It seems like ruthlessness is the yardstick in which people measure their declutters against or aspire to. Sometimes you hear people say this is going to be a ruthless declutter, or I need to be cutthroat in this video. It's my most cutthroat declutter yet. It's my, or, if those words aren't used specifically, adjacent words, like it's my biggest closet purge yet. And people will put in the title and the thumbnails that they got rid of 75% gone, 80% gone. But also this ruthlessness can be applied in other ways. Like people will put in the preamble things like, if you're expecting this to be ruthless or cutthroat, this isn't for you, or this isn't going to be a really cutthroat video. It's not going to be extreme. The ruthless declutter, in my opinion, is the standard in which many people online measure their own declutters against, whether it's going to meet that expectation, exceed it, or fall below it. They're not aiming for the ruthless declutter. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about clothing, but this applies to so many niches. I've personally heard it apply to clothes, to beauty, to stickers and stationery, art supplies. This is a kind of video and application that has been going on long before TikTok. And part of why these videos continue to be made is for aspiration purposes, but more importantly than that, the people love it.
You have all been hounding me for this video. Honestly, I wish that I could get every single message and just put it on the screen. Every single one of you when are you bringing the water declutter? When are you bringing the... And girls, it's here.
Whenever creators do their big declutters or imply that they're going to do a big one, they get crazy views. Sometimes they can be the best or highest performing video on somebody's channel. It also kind of seems like the more extreme the declutter, the better the views. I think there's something incredibly satisfying about watching somebody purge their life of excess. And we're going to be talking about the ruthless declutter today. Our discussion is going to center around why we like it, why they're so popular, why is it the ideal? We're going to talk about it in 3 parts. The first is going to be about control. The second is going to be about more cleansing, discipline, and minimalism. And the third part is going to be about aspiration. Before we get into part 1 about control, this video today was initially a segment of my closet declutter video. And there was this TikTok that I watched that I wanted to talk about why people like the ruthless declutter. And then I realized, oh shit, this is a half an hour, probably more, because I'm a yapper conversation. And so we have our own video today on the topic. And while this is overall going to be discussion and we'll see some B-roll and some examples, I want to play you the video that inspired, or the clip that inspired this video. And then we can talk about that and we'll use that as the way in to the discussion. So let's watch. And by the way, this video has nearly 1 million views.
Go to jail and be arrested for the amount of things that I'm getting rid of. Add everything up and this is probably $10,000 worth of things. I've never decluttered so hard in my life before. Back then, I used to be okay, you know what? Maybe I'll wear it. Okay, maybe I'll keep it. No, this time around, I was strict and I was cold. I was if it was not worn in 2023, it's gone. Do you see how much I got out of that closet? And listen, I'm not even halfway done. I'm not playing, I'm so serious. Look, these... never worn, goodbye. Wore these once, farewell. Wore these once, get out of here. This didn't fit my boobs, impulse buy. When do you guys ever see me wear hats? Never wore it. Wore these once to Coachella and never again. Do we keep her or do we donate her? I found this one at a thrift store. I thought it was so cute for the fall time, but I have yet to wear it. I think we'll keep her. This little pearl bag, which would be super cute for vacation, keep her. You guys know that Lewis is known for giving bad gifts. So he bought me this purse a few years ago, and I've only ever wore it once. I'm not even lying. This yellow Prada purse. Yellow, I don't know why. The shape, the style, I don't know why. I want to get rid of her, but then I don't, so I don't know. This bootlegged Balenciaga bag. It looks like a nutsack. Balenciaga. It's cute, right? It's cute, but they're canceled. I think she's cute. She's very cute. We'll keep her. This bag can barely fit a tampon. I went through all of my dresses. This is everything that's going to stay, and I color coordinated it. I went through all of my shoes. This is going to stay. I'm going to go to Home Depot and get some more of these. I'm going to add another 2 more rows. These shoes I am keeping. Still need to go through all of my bottoms and then all of my tops. Then I have to go through all of this like little random stuff. Overall, I'm just really excited to like get my closet looking right, declutter it, have it looking minimal, and just very functional. Let me know if you guys want to see a part 2. I should go to
This video has a lot of the hallmarks of the declutter video, or the declutter video that does well, the ruthless declutter. We have so many implications of ruthlessness, even though those words aren't uttered. And that's one of the, I think, the points of this video is that we can get that implication without her actually saying that. We have the giant pile of clothing. I should go to jail. This is so much stuff. We also have her talking about how she wants to be cold. Both the language and the visuals are meant to communicate extremes. She says that she thinks she has about $10,000 worth of stuff on the floor, which is extreme and also a bit of wealth flexing, along with the designer bags that are treated very casually. We do hear her speak very briefly about some of her purchases. She says, this was an impulse buy. When do I wear hats? And then also like shows up the purple boots. Like, she doesn't say anything, but it's like, what was I thinking? Like, I know this was stupid. I shouldn't have bought it. Her stated goal is to make her closet look minimal, not to be minimal, but to look minimal. And I think it's more about her wanting the aesthetic of minimalism opposed to actual minimalism. I don't want to say that like minimalists wouldn't own a walk-in closet that's full, but that seems like something a minimalist probably wouldn't do. To put this another way, I think what she's saying is that she wants her clothes to breathe more, to have more space between items and just it not be stuffed. She wants to own fewer things, but not nothing, not minimalist. She wants it more, I feel like, to appear than to be. This was also part of a new year refresh. This was posted at the beginning of 2024, and her video could have been made like almost any year, 2022, 2025, 2019. A lot of people will do things to get that fresh start feeling, and one of the things that people do is declutter their closets. It's a bit aspirational, I think. You know, like the new year is the ultimate fresh start, and people want to be different and be better on fresh starts. And so the closet is a way for people to be different. We're going to talk more about that in this video. Let's get more into the discussion now, and our first topic at hand is control. I think right now in our current cultural moment where a lot of people are over-consuming, her included, the declutter is not just about the declutter. Stuff isn't just about stuff, you know? In a world that constantly pushes us to buy, or in a world in which we have a revolving door of stuff, which we're constantly accumulating more, the declutter is a way to regain control. When our physical spaces begin to overflow, that can add to a sense of overwhelm and anxiety. I think for a lot of people, the messy space, messy mind kind of thing, or our physical spaces can affect how we think and feel because they can be overwhelming, and they can, I think, help create a sense of chaos in our lives. Our lives might actually be chaotic and busy, and overflowing spaces can add to that. And a ruthless declutter is a tangible way to push back on that. It's a moment to say, you know, I control my space. And I think the desire for control can be very powerful, especially if our consuming habits are built around impulses and indulging whims, where like by definition, impulse buying, impulse shopping is a lack of control. I'm not saying that like all you need is self-discipline. I know shopping problems, shopping addiction is complicated. So if you've been shopping in a way where you're not thinking about what you're doing and where you're just shopping and buying and just like adding everything to cart, there can be a lack of control or lack of thought put into things. And that can be overwhelming. Now this is like your chance to like push back on that behavior even and say, no, now is my time for control. And that like shopping in that way can lead people into feeling like they are out of control or like they have no control. And then if life is chaotic, it can feel more important it can feel important to do that, to take that control. The language I do think also matters. We have ruthless, cutthroat, no mercy, cold. these aren't gentle phrases. These are extremes, and in some ways, maybe like slightly militant. At the very least, if you don't want to think it's militant, I think we could say that it's extreme. That extremeness is part of the appeal. It's decisive and dramatic. And I think the dramatics are important here. Like, especially like in the regain control element, like if you've just been impulsively buying things and just adding things here and there, you're purging it just as quickly, just as decisively even, or maybe more decisively, because stuff could be coming in very quickly, but not decisively. Now stuff is going out just as quickly, but more decisively, which makes it feel more controlled. And the extremeness is satisfying because it is a tangible act, it is a physical change, a real tangible action people can take with their own lives. And small declutters, they don't scratch the itch. Like if you have a closet that is genuinely overflowing and you get rid of 5 things, that's not going to scratch the itch or make you feel better about your choices or your space. It's also not going to provide the same visual transformation or relief. These are dramatic, and the dramatic nature is part of the appeal. And part of the appeal we talked about in like the makeover show, where visual transformation is meant to communicate internal transformation. And decluttering in such a major way can make us feel, as either viewers or participants, like something major has shifted, like this is meaningful, or even that internal change has happened. Either watching or doing it, seeing such a big transformation can give us a sense of accomplishment. I think there can be potentially a cathartic release. You can see the change, you can feel or see the weight being lifted. It's an immediate satisfaction, which can also be a hit of pleasure. Part of that comes from the purging of not physical things, but what they mean to us, or the decisions, like the bad choices or the bad decisions, the things like the negative feelings of things, the impulse and the regrets kind of stuff. It can be like shedding a past version of yourself. However, the need for ruthlessness only really is necessary because of overconsumption. If your closet is consistently being packed to the brim every 3 to 6 months, you need to declutter it to get that sense of ease. But it's ultimately a symptom of buying too much stuff. And this is what is so interesting about these, is that people can feel that overwhelm and that need or that desire to do something dramatic or be different, or just like cut out the chaos and the overwhelm. And so there can be a real mental or emotional need. And so people like feel so compelled to do it or to regain control, only to then fill things up again. And then that need's going to come back, or that desire, that feeling is going to come back. The ruthless declutter can feel like a need, because in some ways it may be, because if your shopping is extreme, the solution needs to be extreme in order to rectify it. But what this really does is to reinforce the buy and declutter cycle. This can become like a coping mechanism. And when I was talking about that emotional relief or release, or that sense of satisfaction, or it can make us feel like something is different or something has changed, but that's an illusion. The thing that struck me the most when I was writing the script for this video is that if this is necessary, if decluttering our closets are necessary for some semblance of control, because without it, our closets would feel out of control, consumption is a burden, because we need relief from our own overconsumption. Overconsumption creates excess. Overconsumption creates clutter. It can create chaos. It can create overwhelm. As I was saying, I think it's worth reiterating as we close out this segment. Declutters are a tangible way to regain control over our lives, but it is an illusion of control and not actually control if we continue doing this. Let's now talk about the intersection of moral cleansing, self-discipline, and minimalism. There is a powerful but often unspoken moral narrative tied to decluttering. Your space can be representative of your life generally, but also yourself. I think when people do these declutters or go on a ruthless declutter, it's perceived as virtuous because of the self-discipline or even the self-awareness. There's often an undercurrent of "I'm better for letting go" involved with declutters. I do think there is a morality embedded in minimalism, even if you want to, let's say, aspire to have some tenets of minimalism, but not actually be the whole thing. And even if it's not self-conscious, I think there is an overall, in our current social climates, current cultural climate, there is a morality tied to owning less things because you are not as materialistic. People like materialism is associated with a lot of negative things like being vain and being shallow or being stupid, being self-absorbed. And some of that can be a reflection on, or like a perceived reflection on the person, but others can be like, you don't see the ills associated with materialism, like the mental health consequences or the consequences to your wallet or to the environment. And so there can be some associations with like the people who want to be materialistic. And so there's this, like, I think moral superiority that can be tied to minimalism. Just, I don't mean that every person ever who's done a declutter or who wants to be minimalist inherently believes that, but I think that there are social and cultural ties to these things. And so I think part of the desire of declutter is this desire for less, which can seem like a relief when you've had too much, but there's also that tying of being better. I think the ruthless declutter can be a sign of moral discipline, or even like a signal to that, or a nod to that, maybe even a desire to that. And this kind of goes into that new year desire to declutter, being a better person, you know, having a better life and having better habits is going to be having less things. Why is that? Because owning less is perceived as better, perhaps morally superior. Like, that's kind of where I'm going with this. You're enlightened and self-aware and you know better. And I do want to say that if you are on a conscious consumer journey, it's very likely that decluttering will be a part of that. But you don't have to declutter ruthlessly. That doesn't have to be part and parcel of the journey. It may be cathartic for you and it genuinely may help with stress and anxiety, but I invite you to consider your stuff first before you declutter. You know, to learn what you might need to learn about your things before decluttering. And it also doesn't have to be dramatic to have effects. One thing I wonder about is if a ruthless declutter is framed as a moral good, does that inherently bypass the questions of why there was so much excess in the first place, right? Like if we think that we're doing something good and beneficial, we could just run with that and just feel so good about it. We don't look at why it's necessary in the first place. And I do think that a lot of people see the benefits of minimalism even for a moment because they want things to be different, because they yearn for the relief that they believe will come from being more minimalist. And I think there's also this overall tie of, if you are going to own less things, that's a more minimalist thing to do. I think that's maybe some people's like gut thought or like knee-jerk reaction or like of associations. And decluttering can be idealized as well because it can feel like a reset button on our lives or our consuming habits or like our closets or whatever space we're talking about. I think that there can potentially be some cognitive dissonance here, either by somebody who believes that overconsumption is bad or they don't want to overconsume, and then being an overconsumer. If that's at play, I think what can help mend that gap is decluttering. Or maybe even somebody can continuously desire and want more, but also believing that having less things is a more morally virtuous or better things to do. And decluttering can help bridge that gap as well. I also think that the dramatic transformation taps into our cultural interest in the redemption arc, because this really gets into people's belief and aspiration, who you'll be after you get rid of these things. People declutter because they want to be different, because they think that there's going to be something different that like the declutter is representative of them being different. It's the first step, the first act in being different. Decluttering can be a symbol of shedding your past self, your past identity, your past habits, your past mistakes, and your past regrets. And I think if you think about it, like maybe even a breakup, some people want to cut their hair or throw away all their clothes that were maybe like their partner liked, or they want to be somebody different. And so decluttering can be like another aspect of that feeling or something in that realm. and it can be a form of self-reinvention. Let's now talk about aspiration. We've already kind of started talking about it, but now we're like more formally in that territory, as well as the fantasy of freedom. I think that part of why people declutter and why people watch declutters is that they tap into a belief of freedom. You're watching people break free of their bad choices or bad habits, impulse buys, and the burden of excess. It is so crazy to me how burdensome excess can be, like how much of a toll it can really take on us. And decluttering can be perceived or viewed as a way to break free of that. There's something called vicarious reinforcement, and that's when we experience satisfaction by watching somebody do something that we want to do, right? Like we don't want to own so much things. We feel trapped and burdened by how much we own. And we watch somebody declutter, we can feel like we can live vicariously through them, or we can get the pleasure and it can feel real. But also what's a little bit different, or a little bit extra, I should say, about decluttering is that this isn't living vicariously through somebody who is living who's doing something that you fundamentally can't do. But you can go into your declutter, but you can go into your decloset and declutter tomorrow. That's open to you. So watching somebody declutter can make, and watching them feel better after, feel resolved, or have some catharsis, that can make it feel actually approachable or doable to us. And we want that feeling so we can be inspired to declutter ourselves. And the emotional release may be such an appeal. And you can watch it. You can watch it unfold in real time. Somebody with the frustration and being flustered and anxious. And then you can watch the transformation happen on the screen, and you can see them smiling, feel better, telling you, oh my gosh, I feel so calm, so at peace, so at ease. You want the emotional release. So the declutter is the way to get the emotional release. You know, if you could just purge ruthlessly enough, you could be free too. You could be liberated from your stuff and the feelings of excess and overwhelm, free from clutter, free from guilt, free from the overwhelm of too much stuff. I call this a fantasy because it is a fantasy for so many people, although not for everybody, because sometimes the ruthless declutter is the thing that kickstarts their journeys to being a more conscious consumer. I can say that just personally, and again, my journey is not like everybody's or like a model or anything like that. I felt like at one point that I needed to ruthlessly declutter, and I think they're private now, but I had some declutters early on because I realized that I could never finish this much stuff. And there was like a weight in that. Knowing that I had so much stuff that I could never finish really weighed on me. And I felt a lot of guilt and shame about it. And so decluttering was a way to like exercise your demons, if you will. And I decluttered some shoes too. But what I came to realize probably within about like a year of starting my conscious consumer journey was that decluttering was not going to be the answer. And as I've gained more information and learned, I've personally realized that like my conscious consumer journey is actually going to revolve more around learning than it is going to about things, like about decluttering or keeping things. That is maybe like not the most important thing that I could do. The most important thing I could do was not keep a thing or declutter a thing, but learn about the things. I've reduced how much I've decluttered over time. And it's my goal that I know it's unachievable, but I still kind of have it in the back of my mind because I find it more inspiring than harmful. And if it ever becomes harmful, I'm going to let it go. I aspire to declutter nothing. You know, like that's my goal. Yeah, we can make mistakes, right? We can buy things with the best of intentions, but like you buy something that didn't fit properly and it was from Poshmark and you're like, oh shit, what can I do with this? Or maybe you bought something that ended up being a different color, or like, you know, you thought something would be a great makeup product for you and it just didn't work. We can buy stuff with all the best intentions and stuff will just not work out sometimes. And that's just the way it goes. But I've personally found that this mindset has allowed me to think about my stuff more critically before I declutter it or before I bring stuff in. And that's made me a more conscious consumer. So that's just something that works for me personally. You might think, back to the video, you might think that decluttering is maybe the antithesis of a haul, like, or it's better for you, or it's more positive content than a haul. Like, you know, if people see hauls as harmful, maybe the declutter is better. No, ma'am, let me tell you why. Because hauls and declutters actually reinforce the same kind of behavior. You watch content that glamorizes shopping and hauling and impulse buying, or you see it in action, or you see somebody doing the PR hauls or whatever, constantly like bringing in new stuff. Those same people are usually going to be decluttering because they get the overwhelm, and they declutter so they can buy more things. So the decluttered videos often reinforce or are necessary to shop at the same levels that people would like to shop at. It's also kind of similar in the respect that it's stuff focused. It's all about the stuff. And as I was mentioning, both behaviors support the other. One is about accumulating, one is about shedding. Neither of them are actually about stopping the behavior. And I think both of these behaviors as well really tie into identity. I'm sorry I keep bringing it up, but it's really been on my mind lately. And because we often tie our identities to stuff, I think identities factor into a lot of why people want to shop and why people want to declutter. Because if we would like our stuff to match who we are and be reflective of what we have, we're going to buy more things when the stuff we have doesn't feel that way. And then we'll declutter the things that don't feel currently us. They don't feel like they represent us or are us. So the buy and declutter cycle can really be a way to upkeep identity, and also can make the ruthless declutter feel important. This stuff doesn't match how I feel and how I am and how I believe myself to be. It doesn't feel true or relevant anymore, and therefore, bye, ma'am. One of the biggest problems of the declutter video, I think for me, is not really the transformation. They can be cathartic. I do watch them from time to time, but I don't watch big or ruthless declutters like almost at all ever. The last time I watched said video was to film B-roll for something on the channel, but in my own private life, I don't watch ruthless declutters. I will watch a declutter from time to time, but it's actually normally in with somebody like creating a capsule or transitioning from one wardrobe season to another, and like, oh, I don't want this anymore, or like it doesn't fit, whatever. That I'm like cool with. And I feel like over time I've just personally used to love the ruthless declutter, the cutthroat declutter, and then it's just like slowly morphed over time and finding alternatives that are more appealing to me, but not just more appealing, or I feel like more beneficial, supporting the life and goals that I want to have. So as I was trying to say, the thing about these kinds of videos is that I think what they can do is grant us permission to keep consuming how we're consuming, and they can be a stamp of approval on this kind of behavior. And if you can purge it all later, buying everything you want now doesn't really feel like a problem. Imagine, like, for the next 5 years, if everything you decluttered had to like sit in the corner of your home. I don't know, imagine there's like magic or something, and if you tried to bring it outside of your house, there'd be like a force field or something, and like, whoosh, and you couldn't get through. I'm sorry. I think that would change our behavior. If we couldn't donate to thrift stores anymore, if we had our pile of clothes getting bigger, we'd probably change something. And I think a lot of people, their behavior becomes invisible because they don't have that imaginary pile of clothing in the corner of their room, you know? To conclude, let me wrap up my thoughts of this video in a few sentences, hopefully short. At its core, the ruthless declutter, in my opinion, represents the taking back of control, or represents the fantasy of control in a world of excess. It's the promise that with enough willpower, we can erase the evidence of our own overconsumption and emerge renewed. And maybe we believe that we'll be different or we'll feel better, and the focus can be on the catharsis. It can be, but not always, a performance of self-discipline, self-mastery, or self-knowledge, and potentially symbolizing that we are not owned by our things. It is also, however, deeply aspirational. Watching somebody get rid of their belongings is a visual shorthand for things like emotional freedom, for hitting reset or reclaiming our space or our lives. What is important is that it's not just physical, but mental too. It can be a way to rewrite the story of our stuff, to purge not only objects, but our guilt or other feelings associated or tied to them. I think we idealize the declutter because of the fantasies we attach to them. I think they sell the fantasies of simplicity, of control, redemption. And I call them fantasies, but that's only really a fantasy if every few months we're refilling our closets again, or our craft supplies, or our shoes, or our makeup. That's not liberation or redemption or simplicity or control. That's a cycle. The true challenge isn't learning how to let go. It's learning how to shop differently. That's everything for me today. Thanks so much for being here and watching another video in every day. May loved having you here. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the ruthless declutter. Do you like them? Are they cathartic to you? Are you one of those people who like to watch them, but doesn't really affect your own life? I know lots of y'all in this community who really enjoy the ruthless declutter, and I've talked about it from time to time on the channel. Lots of y'all find them cathartic to watch, but don't affect your own consuming behavior all that much. I'm really curious to hear from you how they, or if they affect you. Let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you again here soon for a new video. Bye.